We're just about in winter in southeast Queensland. It's a beautiful day here at the Sandy Camp Wetlands Reserve. The amount of bird species that I've photographed is just great. Today I want to share with my updated settings on photographing wildlife, because quite a few people have been saying, Charles, I've been noticing that when you're doing videos now, you're talking about settings, and we've looked back to when you stated how you set up your Z6II, and they're slightly different. What have you changed? Why have you changed it? Can you let us know? So this video is about how I've set up my Nikon Z6II in 2024. As we progress as a photographer, we live and learn, and we refine our photographic skills. And that is a challenge of wildlife photography. And I'll show you the I menu. If you're not using the I menu, then you're limiting yourself, because the I menu helps you change your white balance, change your metering, change your autofocus mode, change between FX and DX. Do you want to crop? Is a bird far away from you? Well, the bird's too far, I can quickly go into DX mode. This is how I have set up my Nikon Z6II for wildlife photography in 2024. I have done quite a few videos that go into great detail about some of the functions on the Z6II, like subject tracking for bird in flight photography, using the crop mode and how it affects our metering modes as well, photographing in 12-bit versus 14-bit RAW, picture profiles, how you can use them if you're shooting in JPEG, and the silent photography mode for wildlife photography. And I'll put all these links in the description below. If I delve too deeply into all of these, the video will just run too long. Now on the front of my Z6II, we have the FN1 button and the FN2 button. I use the FN1 button for subject tracking, and the FN2 button I use to change the metering mode. This gives me a quick way of changing my metering between center weighted and spot metering. In the menu, I'll only discuss the functions that I use. I will just skip over the ones that I do not use. So in the photo shooting menu, we go across and I leave high ISO noise reduction off. Vignette control is set to normal. I don't touch diffraction. Auto distortion control is set to on. Portrait impression I don't use. Flicker reduction shooting I don't use. Metering is always set to center weighted. Flash control I don't use. My focus mode, it is always in AFC. Autofocus area mode is set to dynamic area AF. I can change that when I go in the field. Auto bracket doesn't apply. Multiple exposures doesn't apply. HDR, high dynamic range photography, doesn't apply. And this is for shooting time lapses. That doesn't apply to wildlife. I'll skip the movie mode. I might do one on shooting video later, but this is just for photography today. And when we come here to autofocus at the top, I have autofocus continuous priority selection, and that is release. If you choose focus when you're shooting wildlife, the camera will not take a photo unless it is sure that it has focused. And when you're shooting in AFC mode, you really want to be in release. You will miss shots if you use focus before it takes the shot. AFS, well, we're not in AFS mode. Focus tracking with lock on. This shows you between quick and delayed. It's set to 3 here. What this does, for example, is if I'm tracking a duck flying across a lake and I'm tracking it and it goes behind a huge tree, if I put it to quick, it is going to lock onto the tree and then try to find focus again on the duck. If you see that this is happening, move this setting towards the delay. Delay means that it will take a little bit of time, so it'll expect that it's going to lose focus for a split second or so, and then it'll be able to track the duck again. The more you move it to the right, the more chances you have of your focus locking onto your subject as it moves behind an object. The focus point, I use them all. Storage orientation, I don't worry about. AF activation is here. Shutter, AF on. Limit area AF, I don't use. Focus wraparound, I don't use. Focus point options, I don't use. Low light AF, I do use. Built-in AF assist illuminator, that's the little light that comes on the front, so I leave that off. The EV steps for exposure control, I always leave it on 1/3. Easy exposure compensation, I don't use. Center weighted area. Now this gives you the option of choosing an area around your focus point. So this shows 12 mils or average. For center weighted, you want 12 mils. Fine tune optional, I don't touch. Shutter release button with a lock, I don't use. Self timer, of course, I don't use. Power off delays is just the amount of time that you want the camera to show your playback images, your menus, and all that. I don't like the standby timer to be too low, because if it's too low, the camera goes into sleep mode, then takes a couple of seconds to wake up, and I could miss taking a shot of a bird if the camera's gone into sleep mode. This is continuous slow. I do not use continuous slow. Maximum continuous release is normally set to 30. Exposure delay is off. Shutter type is auto. Extended shutter speeds, I don't use. Limit selectable area, I don't touch. File number sequence is always set to on. Image frame, I leave it off. The grid I don't like using. Focus peaking I don't use. These I don't use. Model flash, auto bracketing order. Customize the eye menu. I will talk about this after we've gone through the menu. The custom controls, this allows you to program the FN1 button, the FN2 button, the AF mode for back button focusing, the little joystick at the back. If you press it, for me, it's set to FX or DX mode, but I can also easily choose that in the eye menu. I don't have a Z lens, so this one here I don't use. After custom controls, we have the OK button. All these I just left as factory. Now I'll show you how I've customized the eye menu. In the eye menu now, from left to right on the top, I have white balance, my metering mode, AF mode, image area mode, which is FX or DX, my shutter release mode, the shutter type. Then on the bottom row, my picture controls, image size, silent photography mode, active delighting, vibration reduction, and my focus mode. Now, white balance for my wildlife photography is normally set to natural light auto, but for this video, I've set it to fluorescent just because of the color cast that I have in my office here. Fluorescent, but remember that white balance is set to natural light auto. I have found that this is the best white balance to use for wildlife photography. Next is metering, and you can see from left to right we have matrix metering, and you can see that this affects how the image looks. I have center weighted, I have spot metering, and then spot metering highlight weighted. So this one makes sure that your highlights are not blown. For wildlife, I only use spot metering or center weighted, and you can see very clearly the difference between center weighted and spot metering. 90% of the time I will be in center weighted. Next is my AF area mode. So when I turn the camera on, it's set to dynamic area AF. And my three most common AF modes that I use will be single point if the bird is in the tree or very low to the water, dynamic area AF just for general bird photography, wide area AF small or wide area AF large I will use for bird in flight, or if my subject is separated from everything else. When I want to use focus tracking for birds, which I rarely do, and I've discussed this in the previous video, I will go to Auto Area AF. And when I click Auto Area AF, by pressing the F1 button at the front here, I've activated the tracking mode. And all I have to do is press the AF on button at the back of my camera and I can track as so. If I let go of the AF on button, you can see that it's automatically gone back to the centers. I can press it again and it's tracking. I will never use just Auto Area AF, because can you see what it's doing? I've just got red rectangles. So it's potluck whether the camera will actually lock focus or it won't. So the only time that I will be in Auto Area AF is when I'm using subject tracking. There are two other Auto Area AF modes, which is people and animals. But because the Z6II does not have bird eye autofocus, I find that there is no difference between Auto Area AF and Auto Area AF for people or for animals. I'll go back to Dynamic Area AF. The next one here is FX or DX. If I press OK, I can choose between FX and DX. I like having this in the eye menu because I can easily go from FX, which is full frame, to crop mode. And you can see here, I've zoomed in 1.5 times the size. So I've got that much more reach, but the file size has gone from 24 megapixels to about 12 megapixels. And in release mode here, I only use two modes: continuous high, which gives me 5.5 frames per second, or continuous high extended, which gives me around 13 frames per second. And I choose one or the other depending on the subject that I'm photographing. Like if I'm photographing a robin or a small bird that's likely to move around very quickly or take off, I will shoot in continuous high extended because it gives me 13 frames per second. But if I'm shooting birds like a water bird that's just on the water, not moving very quickly, I can come down to continuous high, which gives me 5.5 frames per second. But 90% of the time, I will stay in continuous high and just take a very short burst of photos. The next one here selects the shutter type I want: auto, mechanical shutter, or electronic front curtain. Last year I was saying that I preferred the electronic front curtain, but these days I've found that I've lived and learned, and I found leaving the camera choose the shutter type is the best option. Next is my picture control, and it stays in portrait mode. Next one here is just image size. By clicking enter here, I can choose the size of the RAW file, or if I'm shooting in JPEG, the size of the JPEG file. Next is silent photography. If I choose silent photography, I'm not going to hit the shutter. I only choose silent photography if my subject is very close to me and I don't want to spook it, or if I'm photographing a bird that is likely to spook. Let's say if I'm photographing kingfishers feeding their young, then I will be in silent mode so that I'm not adding any extra sound and I'm not likely to spook the bird. Next is active delighting, and then all the way on the side here is my focus mode. So I've got single autofocus, autofocus continuous, or manual focus. For wildlife, it's always AFC. When I look at my eye menu, the only ones that I care about are my metering, my autofocus mode, whether I'm shooting in FX or DX, and the silent photography mode. The camera is showing I am in U2 mode. To save all my settings, I have to go into the menu, come down to setup menu, and I go across down to save user settings, and then I come down to save to U2. I click on the right arrow and it says save settings. I click the OK button, and now all the settings that I've shown in this video have been saved to the U2 mode. This is a quick way so that all your settings are saved. So that's the way that my Nikon Z6II is set up at this time. I've just finished my walk here. It's 10 o'clock. Had a great morning. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up, stay safe, enjoy wildlife photography, and I'll see you next time.